of Alfred A. Cohen, who came from Britain. He's our representative Englishman. And what happened is he came from a very wealthy family, but a good part of their wealth was based on a plantation in Jamaica. And when he was young, the British banned slavery, and suddenly that plantation wasn't worth nearly so much. So he traveled around trying to make his way in Canada and then down in Jamaica. And in 1849, of course, having nothing better to do with himself, he went to the gold fields and soon founded a commission firm, which is really a form of banking, and became a banker. He married into San Francisco society and really established himself there. But when Adams and Company Bank failed in the big panic of 1854, wiping out Alfred A and also wiping out Captain Nelson, he was selected by the trustees very quickly, by the owners very quickly, to be the trustee of that bank, and he basically agreed to come in and move all the money out. So when the ragtag like Nelson and Amen came to the doors to try and get their money in this big panic when everyone was beating on all the doors of all the banks pretty much throughout the West, because it started with the St. Louis bank failing, there was no money to be had. And although he didn't have a lot of the money, and he is just the trustee, he wasn't, as Jane would say, the Madoff behind all this, he was the guy who got caught holding the bag. He was the guy who got blamed. You know, his brother shot somebody that he thought was one of the owners of the bank, who turned out to be a reverend of a similar name, and he ended up going to jail for a year, during which he studied law, having nothing better to do with his time, and came out and became a lawyer, and ended up, he had some land that some clients gave him, called Fernside, a big chunk of eastern Alameda County, and he did what a lot of landowners did at this time. This is a common way that a lot of people made money, is they started building railroads out to where their land was so they could subdivide it and sell it out. So he at one point had a railroad that ran through Oakland and down through Hayward and out to the east, and when the Central Pacific Railroad was completed, it wasn't quite completed, and it was his railroad was the final part that was needed to get people to the ferries to sail across to San Francisco. So he was eventually bought out by the Big Four, but he made a lot of money on that railroad, and became also an attorney for the Central Pacific as sort of a trade for that railroad piece that he had. Although he hated the Big Four, who founded the Central Pacific Railroad, he thought they were a bunch of charlatans, which wasn't so wrong. And he ended up as a justice of the peace for Alameda County in the end. So he was a notorious guy, but he did build up his fortune in the traditional way then, which was land development. Hasn't much changed to today. And also the bank scandals of then, you can see, have returned to haunt us in the present day too. So here's another connection. And we have one last